Aarav was a quiet young villager in Sundarpur, known for his honesty, kindness, and unwavering sense of right and wrong. He lived a simple life, waking before sunrise, helping his parents in the fields, and spending evenings teaching children who couldn't afford school. Though peaceful, Sundarpur carried a heavy silence, the kind that grows when injustice becomes normal. For years, Thakur Veer Singh's cruelty went unchallenged, and the villagers survived by lowering their heads and swallowing their pain. Thakur Veer Singh ruled with fear. Families paid unfair taxes, farmers surrendered their crops, and no one dared to speak against him. His guards roamed the village like shadows, reminding people of their place. Children grew up learning not dreams, but caution. Women whispered their worries behind closed doors, and men accepted humiliation quietly, believing resistance only brought destruction. Aarav had grown up watching this quiet suffering, but something inside him always felt wrong about it. One afternoon, Aarav saw Thakur's men dragging away the only cow belonging to an elderly widow. She fell to the ground begging, explaining it was her last source of survival, but her tears went unnoticed. Aarav felt something ignite inside him, a burning anger mixed with helplessness. Watching the widow cry shattered something in him. It was the moment he realized silence was not peace, it was surrender. And Aarav could no longer bear to watch injustice unfold without doing something. That night, Aarav lay awake, torn between fear and conscience. He knew confronting Thakur could cost him everything: his home, his safety, even his life. Yet, every time he closed his eyes, he saw the widow pleading and the villagers turning away. He wondered what kind of man he would become if he too chose silence. Fear tightened its grip around him, but his heart whispered a truth he couldn't ignore. Right was still right, even when dangerous. The next morning, Aarav visited the widow. Her heart was dark, her eyes empty, her voice trembling as she thanked him simply for caring. The cow's absence was more than a loss. It was her dignity torn away. Seeing her fragile state broke Aarav's hesitation. In that moment, he understood injustice not as a story, but as a wound that destroyed real lives. Standing outside the widow's hut, Aarav made a decision that would change his fate. He could no longer watch his people suffer quietly. Even if no one stood with him, even if fear walked beside him, he would confront injustice head-on. Courage, he realized, was not the absence of fear. It was choosing to act despite it. Aarav marched to Thakur's gate, heart pounding but steps firm. His voice did not shake as he demanded the return of the widow's cow. Thakur's guards stared in disbelief. A young villager challenging authority was unheard of. Though mocked and threatened, Aarav stood tall, refusing to step back. Around him, villagers gathered silently, shocked. No one dared join him, but everyone watched with wide, fearful eyes. Some prayed he would back down, others silently wished they had his courage. But Aarav didn't look for support. He looked only for justice. From his balcony, Thakur Veer Singh appeared, intrigued by the bold young man. His voice was cold as he insulted Aarav publicly and warned him to stay in his place. But the threat, meant to intimidate, only strengthened Aarav's resolve. For the first time, Thakur saw a villager who refused to bend. Fear followed Aarav home like a shadow, whispering of consequences. But anger, righteous, burning anger, rose stronger. He realized that fear alone had allowed injustice to thrive for so long, and he was done being afraid. The next day, elderly men, mothers, and farmers approached Aarav quietly, thanking him for standing up. They whispered their blessings, their hopes, and the pain they had buried for years. Their trust became Aarav's strength. As he listened to their stories, Aarav understood something deeply. People were not weak, they were simply leaderless. They needed someone to speak, someone to step forward first. And for reasons he still did not fully understand, they had chosen him. Aarav began collecting proof, false taxes, stolen land papers, testimonies of abuse. Every document he found revealed another layer of corruption. Each piece fueled his determination. Night after night, small groups gathered in Aarav's courtyard. Farmers, shopkeepers, young boys, they all came with fear in their eyes but hope in their hearts. What started as whispers became a quiet movement. One evening, as he looked at the villagers gathered around him, hope flickering in their expressions, Aarav felt his fear melt away. He was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for all of them. And that made him unstoppable. With steady steps, Aarav led a group to the village square where Thakur sat with his guards. For the first time, injustice was challenged not in whispers, but out loud. Aarav demanded the cow back and accountability for every wrong committed. Men paused their plowing, women left their chores, children stood silently. It was a moment Sundarpur had never witnessed, a villager confronting the most powerful man without faltering. Humiliated, Thakur ordered his guards to teach Aarav a lesson. Gasps echoed, but Aarav didn't move. His stillness was louder than fear, and that silence shook the village more than any scream could. Just as the guard stepped forward, something extraordinary happened. One villager stepped beside Aarav, then another, then dozens. The square filled with people standing shoulder to shoulder, united for the first time. Thakur's guards faltered. They were used to intimidating individuals, not an entire village filled with courage. Their hesitation marked the beginning of Thakur's downfall. In that moment, Sundarpur found its voice. Years of fear dissolved. People realized that unity was more powerful than tyranny, and silence would never again define them. Despite the danger, Aarav traveled to the district office, presenting the evidence. It was a bold step, one that placed truth above fear. Officials listened, surprised by the depth of corruption. Days later, investigators arrived. Villagers testified boldly, no longer hiding. Each statement chipped away at Thakur's power. With undeniable evidence, Thakur was stripped of his position and arrested. The chains that had held Sundarpur for decades finally broke. The next morning, Sundarpur awoke to a peace they had never known. Children laughed freely, elders celebrated, and farmers walked with pride. Fear no longer ruled their footsteps. Aarav worked tirelessly with officials to restore stolen lands, rebuild fairness, and create systems that protected every villager. Justice became the new foundation of Sundarpur. Though villagers now saw him as a leader, Aarav understood his journey wasn't about power. It was about dignity, compassion, and doing what was right, even when it was dangerous. Word of Sundarpur's victory spread, inspiring other villagers to fight for their rights. Aarav's courage became a beacon for countless others living in silence. One evening, the widow visited Aarav holding his hands with tears of gratitude. "You didn't just return my cow," she said softly. "You returned our hope." Aarav's journey proved a powerful truth. It does not take kings or warriors to change the world. Sometimes a single young villager with courage is enough to break the chains of injustice. His story became a reminder for generations. When courage becomes stronger than fear, even the mightiest oppression collapses.